When I was growing up, I collected baseball cards, and like a lot of kids in the late 1980s, I did so less out of enthusiasm for the sport than because I thought they actually might be worth something someday. Now, I don't want to suggest I wasn't into baseball. Growing up in St. Louis, you kind of have to root for the Cardinals, even if you're only a little interested in the actual games. But what I will say is I spent far more time sorting through my long box of cards and carefully putting them into my binder with protective plastic sleeves than I ever did following the sport itself. I had no idea what the stats on the back of the cards meant, nor did I have any understanding of who the players actually were or why their cards might be worth so much money. In the early 1990s, one of the hottest players was Ken Griffey Jr., and when I discovered my brother had his rookie card, worth about $6 at the time, according to my price guide, I connived a way to con him out of it and then carried the card in my wallet to prevent my brother from getting it back. Now look, that's typical older brother stuff, and I'm ashamed of it today. And hey, bro, if you're listening, I am still really sorry about that, okay? Because not only did I deprive you of a valuable card, but I also made it pretty much worthless by warping the corners and then keeping the card in an often humid location in my back pocket. I should have handled that card gingerly with latex gloves, gotten it off to a grading service, and sealed it away for an investment in my future, right? By the way, that card today is potentially worth hundreds of dollars if it's in pristine condition, but most people aren't paying hundreds of bucks for it. They're paying at most about $4 to $6. So, bro, I guess I owe you an appetizer next time we have dinner together to make it up to you, but today's prices, I still better make you split the check with me, because I don't know. I don't think I could get an appetizer for the market value of a Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card anymore. But, on the other hand, if I had a T206 Honus Wagner 1909 white border sweet caporal American tobacco trading card, I could start planning my retirement, because one of those in worse shape than my Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card sold earlier this year for $5.1 million. One in excellent condition can sell for $8 million. But that's because there are probably no more than 100 of these cards in existence, and only 53 that are actually registered through a card grading company. Baseball cards have had their ups and downs of popularity, but they're still one of the most popular collectible hobbies around, right up there with comic books and coins and stamps. And yet, if you want to make the really big money, you can try your luck with Pokemon cards, because one of those, an extremely rare Japanese card featuring Pikachu under the title Illustrator, just sold for $16.5 million in February. There are only 41 of these in existence, and prior to this sale, the one that had sold for the most was just shy of $6 million, and it was sold to YouTube star Logan Paul. This was actually the same card, by the way. It was made even more famous by Logan Paul's showboating with it, because he had it encased in a custom diamond necklace and took it everywhere with him. And that card now sold this time to hedge fund founder AJ Scaramucci for that absurd amount of money, $16.5 million. And so we should ask, how is a piece of cardstock with a bunch of Japanese text and a picture of Pikachu worth the price of a mid-sized mansion in 2026? And is this something marketers ought to write off as a one and done? Or is it something we can learn from? Well, I'm Sean in St. Louis, and this is the Marketing Gateway. So the entire principle of the field of economics is scarcity. If I have something you want and you can't get it anywhere else, I can pretty much name my price and see if you're willing to pay it. But if I have something that you can get from pretty much anyone else, the market value of that thing you want is a lot lower, because all you have to do is spend the time and energy searching for a better deal. This is not, I hope, a new concept to anyone listening, but it's an important one when we're talking about collectibles, because the entire market for trading cards is predicated on three things. First, there's the question of value. The trading cards have to feature something people actually care about and want to feel a connection to. If you make trading cards of your friends and your neighbors, they're going to have a pretty limited appeal. If it's a historical figure or a movie star, those cards might be a little more desirable, but if it's someone people tend to have limited access to, like sports stars, Trading cards are a lot more desirable, especially if they have a lot of information about those players and allow fans of sports to feel as if owning a card featuring that player's photographs and stats expresses their fandom for that player or that team. Trading card companies pay a lot for access to the players and leagues and are very competitive with one another. It's not easy to get into making trading cards anymore. Next, there's the question of quality. The trading cards can't be flimsy things you cut out of magazines or get as inserts in comic books by tearing them out with the binding. They need to have a uniform quality. They need to be durable enough to stand up to handling and attractive enough to be something people would be proud to own. Often, trading cards feature strong graphic design and exciting photos showing players in action. They're also printed in color, and they may have things like holographic logos or foil borders, and they have enough heft to feel substantial when they're being handled. When I was a kid, baseball cards came in junky wax paper, and they had a piece of bubble gum inside. It was awful. It was this hard little stick of pink gum. But you know what? You bought them because you hoped you'd get a player you wanted, and then with the other cards, you'd just trade them away and try to get the players that you wanted. But today, baseball cards come in foil-lined packages, and nobody would ever dream of putting gum inside of them. People actually buy sealed packs or boxes and leave them that way because a sealed pack from a particularly popular run can become quite valuable if it might have an expensive card inside. And that leads us to our final question of scarcity. So trading cards are printed in limited quantities and tend not to receive reprints without obvious changes to help collectors to know which one came from the original printing. If there are millions of a particular card in circulation, they're not worth very much, no matter who's on them, because you know what? They're just not desirable. But if there are tens or hundreds of thousands in circulation, certain cards can rise above the rest if they feature a really popular player. So Michael Jordan, for example, is always going to be worth more than other players on his teams because he's Michael Jordan and everybody wants one of his cards. But because Michael Jordan is so popular, what card companies will do is produce variants so that they can keep the scarcity of each variation higher. Some variants become very popular because they look cool or are printed in smaller quantities, while others will be more common or less desirable. Once you have these three factors accounted for, you have a collectible good. And these rules really apply to just about any sort of collectible, from coins to stamps to Franklin Mint plates to Transformers toys to old video games or comic books to Beanie Babies to NFTs to Labubu dolls. And the people who make these collectibles generally use every trick they can to enhance the value of their products and also encourage people to buy more of them. They package them in blind packaging so you don't know what you're getting if you're the original owner. They price them low enough that you might be enticed to buy more of them, and they promise the potential for value, ultra special editions or high resale value, or extremely limited production quantities, or whatever else. For extremely expensive collectibles, certificates of authenticity and production numbers might even be provided. For less expensive ones, the company may provide a catalog or guide to show the rarity of each potential item so you can judge whether or not you hit the jackpot. If it sounds like gambling, well, you know what? It activates the same dopamine pathways, but the difference is you get an actual collectible good that has resale value instead of the simple promise of the potential to make money. That good is likely to be worth less than what you paid for it, but you know what? It's still worth something. Provided, of course, that you keep it in collectible shape, because collectors aren't quite the fools you might think they are, and the only way they're going to pay a lot of money for something is if they're certain it's going to hang on to its value. And thus, there is an entire industry now for grading the quality of collectibles and then sealing them away in protective cases to help them retain their value. For trading cards, comics, and other printed materials, this is essential because they're often not printed on the most durable of paper, and it will degrade naturally over time no matter what you do to it. The inks will start to fade when they're exposed to light, the paper will absorb humidity, and there may be chemicals that were used in the printing process that leave residual acids that slowly cause the paper to decay. You see that all the time with newsprint, and that's one reason older comic books have to be sealed away and protected. Another problem in the collectibles market is that a lot of the people who get involved in the hobby love to be able to turn a profit. There's a pretty famous story from 1990 where a 12-year-old boy in Itasca, Illinois convinced a clerk at a collectible card shop called Ball Mart to sell him a rare 1968 Topps Nolan Ryan and Jerry Koosman rookie card. The price tag said $1,200, and the boy convinced the clerk working that day to sell it for him for $12.00. It was actually worth 100 times that, $1,200. And so the shop's owner, Joe Ehrman, sued the boy for $1,188 to make up the difference. The judge presiding over the case ultimately made the Solomonic move of having the card put up for auction and letting the boy and the shop owner each select a charity to which their half of the proceeds would go. And you can bet after that story, everyone knew the true value of a Nolan Ryan rookie card, and it was a lot harder for collectors to take advantage of those who just happened to have a pile of old baseball cards they were willing to give away or sell for really cheap. Even so, it's actually not baseball cards that make the big money. Right now, it's Pokemon cards. And when I stopped in a game store here in St. Louis called Yeti Gaming a couple of years ago that specializes in Pokemon cards, I was shocked to see a big crowd of people, each buying multiple boxes of cards at a time, as the owner assured them that valuable cards were likely to be inside based on the rarity of the print run. And you know what? I trust he knows his business. I also trust he's really good at moving Pokemon cards to people that want to take a chance on them. But with this year being the 30th anniversary of the Pokemon series, there's a growing interest in the cards. And because so many of the older sets are out of print, and the cards also have utility in the trading card game itself, many of the people getting into collecting the cards, or back into it, are doing so in hopes of picking up still sealed older sets with potentially valuable cards or current runs that may have valuable cards within them. In many Pokemon print runs, there are cards that can be worth thousands of dollars if they're scarce enough and desirable enough. There are over 1,000 different Pokemon today, but many of the original 151 Pokemon are still really popular. And so new editions of their cards tend to be popular among collectors who specialize in collecting certain cards. So, for example, there's one Pokemon called Eevee that has many different variations called Eeveelutions, some of which are really, really popular among fans who like to collect all the different Eevee variants. And then there are also people who like to collect all of the Charizards or Bulbasaurs. What about Pikachu, though? Well, Pikachu has so many cards that he's often not worth a lot. But the original Pikachu cards, especially that Illustrator variant, can be worth a ton because he's such a popular character. And every now and then, there's a variant that's really popular, which people will pay thousands of dollars to get, like the EX Holon Phantoms Pikachu from 2006, which is worth $3,200 today if it's in perfect condition. But before you get the big dollar stars in your eyes, let me remind you that Pokemon's biggest asset, besides its continuing popularity, is its explicit focus on collecting things. It's core to the IP, and the Pokemon Company controls production of these cards to ensure that they continue to have value among players. You can't get into this market yourself without buying their cards, nor can you make a copycat product that will be anywhere near as popular, and people have definitely tried. Pokemon is a once-in-a-generation phenomenon, and other collectible card games like Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh! Don't come anywhere near delivering the same level of value for collectors. So, back to my original question. Can we as marketers learn anything from this collectible phenomenon? The answer, of course, is yes. If we can create products that have an obvious value, which are high in quality and which have a stated scarcity, there's definitely an opportunity to get people to buy things because they're afraid they might not have the chance later. It's been done with everything from designer garments to Happy Meal toys to limited edition books to Lego sets to Oreos to Stanley Cups. By the way, not the hockey trophy, but the drinking mugs with that straw sticking up. But here's the problem. You can't be cynical if you're going to do this because collectors may be happy to spend lots of money, but again, they are also not stupid. You may get a short-term gain from creating things that are collectible and limited edition, but if you want to continue to make money, you have to build a real connection with the community and ensure that there is a resale market and also that you're producing more of what people want in sufficiently scarce quantities that your new products won't take away the value of your old ones. You also have to be aware of how you attempt to ride the coattails of popularity of something that is scarce. and it usually won't yield the same dividends. So for example, if someone wanted to get the rights to reprint a Hannes Wagner tobacco card, a lot of people would probably buy it to be able to say they had one, though they would be definitely not willing to pay collectible prices for it. The reprint would be worth a little more than an average baseball card, but not a lot more, and the novelty of owning one would wear off pretty fast. You'd really have to constrain the supply or offer it through a specialty outlet to make any real money on it. So as it happens, you can currently buy an officially licensed one in an acrylic holder through the Baseball Hall of Fame shop online for, just $8, or for interest-free payments of $2 with PayPal. And if you're a big spender, you can also get a Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, or Lou Gehrig card from the same site for $8 a piece. $32 for 4 of the most valuable baseball cards ever printed, but worth very little because they're not the genuine article. They're just reprints anyone can buy if they want it. I'm Sean in St. Louis, and this has been the Marketing Gateway. See you next time. So here's a reminder. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. According to Mental Health America, nearly 1 in 5 American adults will have a diagnosable mental health condition in any given year, and 46% of Americans will meet the criteria for a diagnosable mental health condition at some point in their life. Half of those people will develop conditions by the age of 14. Mental health is something we all should take seriously. Please do not be afraid to seek help. You're not alone in your struggles, and if you know someone who's struggling with mental health conditions, please help in any way that you can. Sometimes all it takes is a simple text checking in on them, and it could end up saving their life. If you find yourself needing immediate help, please text or call the Suicide and Crisis Hotline at 988. And if you would like to learn more or you need assistance in finding help, you can visit Mental Health America's website at mhanational.org. There's also an option on the page to donate if you feel so inclined, and I hope that you will.